Alrighty then. Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, welcome to the weekend live stream. It is approximately 8 a.m. I am tired. It has been a long, I don't want to say stressful. My job isn't really stressful, but it's been a long week, and I'm happy that the weekend is here. While everyone's kind of funneling in a little bit of what I'll be doing this weekend, I have 2 sponsored videos I have to work on. So thank you to the sponsors. They haven't paid me yet, so that's why we're not saying the sponsor's name, but there will be 2 sponsored videos coming out. I also have an audition video I have to do for Pluralsight. I'm trying to become a creator on Pluralsight, and so I've made it to the second stage, which you submit basically a 10-minute audition tape to kind of showcase your skill, showcase your teaching style. I also have to study. For those of you who don't know, I'm back in school. I'll be taking my very first test, which is a Introduction to Web Dev course that is very, very basic. But I am studying this weekend to take my test on Monday, and I will finish my very first units, which is 3-unit course in for my web dev class, which is a software development bachelor's of science. So that's what I'll be doing this weekend, as well as this live stream. How is everybody? What is on your mind? What shall we talk about? There was one topic that I wanted to talk about, and I think it's a good one, and I do mean this. Excuse me, I allow myself 1 monster on a Saturday and 1 monster on a Sunday to reward myself for working hard most of the time. So the topic today that we're going to start off the video with is what I would learn if I wanted to break into the industry. The industry being web dev, software, technology. Software is mainly what I'm referring to here. Let me go ahead and close my blinds real quick. There we go. So the reason what I would learn is, at this time anyhow, and this is a very, very rapidly growing space, but I would be learning Solidity. I would be learning cryptocurrency. I went to a talk, and I did a little bit more research on my own, and on average, the growth in the cryptocurrency space for its development standpoint is very good. And on top of it, on average, you're getting paid somewhere between 10 to 20%, along with better benefits. Now, that means you have to pick up some stuff that's a little bit new. Solidity is one of them that's used to write Ethereum contracts. Besides that, I really couldn't tell you too much. But that would be the direction I'd go in, because you're going to, one, have a little bit of an easier time, because there's going to be less applicants. You have people like me who are still relatively new to the industry, who maybe are getting comfortable, or maybe who just don't feel like going into cryptocurrencies. Maybe they're happy with their job, but maybe you that and on a side note, I went to a meetup. If you guys don't know, sometimes I post to my community page. I went to a meetup last night, and there's 3 software companies, 3 very reputable, interesting software companies looking to hire junior developers and developers. So if you're not going to meetups and you're not doing that, and you're really looking for work, I mean, there's nothing. They were taking resumes. The people you'd be working with were taking resumes. You basically have an in. So I hope you take advantage of that. But on that tangent, but if I was going to dive into the space, kind of my game plan anyhow is my current next year is devoted to getting my bachelor's. After that, I actually plan to jump into the cryptocurrency space. I've been talking about this for a while, but if you're looking for something, so not only can you do front end for these companies that are crypto based, you can probably do a little bit of the Ethereum contracts and everything else in between. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, because I think a lot of people, we all hear all these buzzwords regarding cryptocurrency, but in terms of, and by the way, I encourage you to do all your own research about this, but in terms of the pay, in terms of the benefit, the opportunity, it's a great space to jump into. So let's see, we got some questions coming in here. So React.js and Angular. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. I personally like Angular, and people who do React will tell you, well, React is so much lighter than Angular. It's like, it may be at like inception, but when I have to go farm out 20 third-party plugins, I'm not really stoked about that. I'd rather have my 30 plugins that are made by the same developing team and not have to worry about it. So that's just my personal opinion. Haven't been on your channel for a while. Good work, bro. How are you doing in the workforce? I'm doing excellent. I've a relatively high salary for my income, or for my years of experience. I recently changed jobs about 4 months, and when I accepted my current job, I in total had 3 different offers on the table at the same time. Life is good. I have no complaints. Do I play Counter-Strike? No, I don't really have too much time for gaming. I occasionally here or there might play a little bit of Civ if I get kind of burnt out, but now that I'm back in school, I won't have much time. How much learning is enough to get a job? You will know that answer when you know that answer. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to get into, and I know that's not an answer you want. You want to say, you need to study for 6 hours for 3 months, 4 days a week, and then magically a job will show up at your doorstep with a nice salary, good benefits, and an excellent employer. It doesn't work like that, man. You have to constantly be learning for the rest of your career, and that goes very well with when you're starting out in the industry. When you're starting out, when you're trying to get that first role, just keep learning, just keep progressing. Eventually, you'll get a job. React versus Angular versus Vue for beginners. React or Angular, don't even worry about Vue. There's no jobs in Vue in comparison. So that'd be it. How many hours do you code at work? Like in a 40-hour work week? I'm probably doing about 25 hours of coding realistically, maybe 30 in a good week. Hey man, love your content. I started a programming channel. I would love to collab down the road if you're up for that. Do you have a cutoff for subs before you might consider coming up on 600? Well, John G. Fisher, can I just say congratulations for you actually starting a channel. So many people say they're going to do it. It has been one of the biggest success stories in my personal life, just being able to have a platform where I'm constantly learning. And it has been an excellent portfolio piece for me. So congratulations to you, John, for starting a channel. In terms of collaborating, I usually just, if you have 10% of my subscribers or higher, I'm happy to collab. So, but if, just shoot me a message. I used to say 1,000 subscribers just because I wanted to make sure the person was dedicated. So hit me up around 1,000, and if I have time, we'll do it. If not, just keep harassing me, John, and we'll get something together. Maybe I can do an interview, or I can go on your channel, you can go on mine. We'll figure it out. But yeah, we'll work something out, John. Where could I get the courses after tutorial? What do you mean? PHP in 2018? I mean, PHP isn't going anywhere right now, unfortunately. How to learn Bootstrap or just copy paste from the right? What you have to understand is Bootstrap is nothing more than a CSS library. It's predefined CSS classes most of the time. There's some components, but for the most part. And what you really need to do is learn. It's okay to use that stuff, but you just have to learn what you want to use out of it a lot of times. Like I use a lot of the buttons, I use the containers, I use the cards, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time learning Bootstrap. Typically how I learn Bootstrap is I go to getbootstrap.com, and then I go and I was like, do they have a button that looks like how do they have a dark button, or what do their buttons look like? How do I make a block level button? I'll just go and I'll search through the documentation and see what it is that I'm looking for. What projects would I recommend building? I'd recommend building unique projects. If you're doing front-end web dev, you're definitely gonna have to incorporate some web APIs. A unique project is something like a I was saying I did a poll the other day about projects that I thought were unique. I did a Pokemon Pokédex project. That's going to be something that I'm going to work on. I also have a cryptocurrency chart project that's something I'm going to work on. Those both use APIs. And then I have a developer tools project is something I'm working on, all of which are unique. You're not really going to find a tutorial for most of that. Kind of cool things. But really, really what I would suggest, if in a perfect case, is start a long-term side project. For me, hey Tito. For me, that's YouTube. And that's why it's been so great. It's been a project that I've consistently worked on for over 2.5 years now, and continue to grow. What are you doing, buddy? Daddy was in the zone. You're messing him up now. All right, yeah, come here. You can lay on my lap. But that would be what I would use if I would try to define a project that would start long term. Let's say that you're interested in cryptocurrencies. Build a cryptocurrency related site that has charts and analytics. And then as you get better, maybe it's just a front end application, right? Maybe it's just something that shows a table of data. And then you're like, okay, you know, I want to build charts. Now you're integrating Google Charts. You say, you know what, now I want to integrate authentication. Now you're learning Node Express, Passport JS, and OAuth, and you're allowing users to log into your website, your web application. So how to use Git to get offers? I don't know. I think Git is really just there to store your code, to show that you code. But they do have job apps on there. Any website for practice exercise to advance your knowledge? Yeah, so if you're just looking to practice algorithms, the site I have done in the past is CodeFights. If you're looking to get exposed to some concepts and projects and algorithms and tutorials, freecodecamp.org is my go-to choice. You're my inspiration, sir. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's so strange to hear people say that, because it's like, I'm just a guy who got sick of sleeping on the couch. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a guy who was like, look, man, I'm going to drop out of college and I'm going to go be a developer because I ain't learning shit in school, and I'm going to go, and I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of delivering pizza. So it's very interesting when people say that, because I'm just like, look, man, I just didn't want to deliver pizzas anymore. I just didn't want to be in school anymore. Let's see. After I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, what can I do next, sir? Well, I would say pick up a JavaScript framework, which should be Angular or React. And then I would say pick up the Laravel for PHP. That would be my suggestion based off that, what you've said there. Having a hard time learning JavaScript, any such able to learn it. So the thing with your very first programming language is you're going to need to really hack away at it for every day until it clicks. And a lot of times people will kind of say they're studying, but really they're taking days off, or they're doing 20 minutes every 2 days or something like that. That's not enough. You got to put a couple hours in every day for a couple months, usually, and then it'll click. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. You're reprogramming your brain how to think. My boy Psychotronic is the only one on Twitch. Yes, that is in fact true. Alright, Asim. Good luck. If I had to guess what's happening with your issue here, SG key Dunia, is it probably just shows you the last console log. Just run that in the JavaScript in the console in the browser, and you'll see that it should go based off of what you have here. I'm assuming it's a console log statement within the for loop. 129, or yeah, I think that's right. I want to know, in your opinion, how many hours per day should you be a minimum of coding to make good progress, and for how long? Well, really, I'm guessing that the first step is to really get a job as a developer. And I would say, on average, 4 hours a day until you get a job. That would be my honest to God answer. And, maybe because if you were like me, I was working I was working a 40-hour full-time job, basically a 9 to 5. I would put in about 3 hours a day, I would say, on the weekdays. So if you could do 3 hours on the weekdays after work, usually like 6 to 9 was what I was doing. And then you could, on the weekends, put in like 12-hour days, which is what I was doing. Or 8 for people who aren't like degenerate coders like me, who just fucking dive in deep for hours upon hours. That would be good. Try to put 3 to 4 hours a day until you get a job. Until then, you can't stop. That's how I look at it. And oftentimes, the people who I've mentored, for those of you who don't know, I do like 1 hour mentorships where I do these. Part of the reason I do these live streams is because I charge $90 an hour for them. And so not everyone can do them. So I try to answer questions here. But sometimes people want to sit down and we'll shoot the shit for 90 minutes. They'll get to pick my brain about anything they want. And oftentimes it's about getting a job. And what I've noticed, having done about 30 of these, is that the people who have been successful are the people who have actually followed through on my advice and not made excuses. So when I say, yeah, you're going to need to put in 3 to 4 hours a day until you get a job, the people that do that, they have no problem getting a job. They're constantly progressing at an exponential rate because they're not stopping. It's kind of like going back and learning math. And it's like you need to learn certain parts and progress. But if you keep forgetting the previous part, it slows down your progress. Now, what I've noticed is I follow up on occasion with some of these people who, I was like, hey, how's it going? Because I want to make sure that they're doing well and whatnot. And every single time, the people who are not coding anymore, the excuses come out. Well, I got really stressed out, so I had to go camping for the weekend and blah blah blah. Or then this happened, and I'm working all the time. I'm tired, so I'm studying on the weekends only. And those are the people who don't get hired. Or they start making excuses. Well, I know this one girl, and she got hired with just this. How come I have to work so hard? And she got... Who the fuck cares about that person? We're talking about you. If you're looking about... If you going through life and you're like, hey, who got the easy route? If you think you're getting the easy route... If you're expecting the easy route, you're in for a very hard time. What system do you recommend, iOS or Windows? Those are two completely different things. So I personally prefer Windows, but it's not going to matter, is the answer. So the advice for change the way searching for things, Psychotronic, I would first go and educate yourself a little bit better about what functions exist. Go through the JavaScript documentation, for instance, to just be like, okay, what are the major array methods, or the major string methods? What are the major number methods? I mean, there's really 3 or 4 data types in JavaScript. I would definitely familiarize yourself with what those are. Just existing, you don't have to know them back and forth. Just know, like, hey, is there a way for me to reduce an array of numbers to a single number? And just know, like, oh yeah, there's reduce. Let me go check out the documentation real quick. Is there a way for me to create a new array that I just add 1 to all the values? Oh yeah, let me go take a look at map. Is there a way to filter out all the odd numbers from an array? Oh yeah, let me go look. I remember the array. There's an array filter that does something like that. That would be my advice. Just go and become more familiar with that, and I think you'll spend less time searching for those sorts of things. First check documentation, then start coding. I mean, honestly, you can do both, but a lot of times people never actually go through the documentation. By the way, I'm guilty of this as well. When I was starting, I recently went through all of the documentation. I have 6 hours of JavaScript videos, and it's part of my 100 algorithm course that I'm working on. I originally was thinking about doing a standalone JavaScript course. I don't think I'm going to do that. What I think I'm going to do, like a learn everything about JavaScript course, what I think I'm going to do is instead a 100 algorithm course where the first 6 hours of the course we break down all the functions in the language, let you know that they exist, and then we'll go through 100 algorithms or 50 algorithms of like, this is how I solved it. Here are the things. See if you can solve it. If not, here's my solution video. But how many languages do you code? I really just code in JavaScript. If you count TypeScript as a language, TypeScript. But that's really really where I used to do PHP at my last job, but I'm a front-end developer. 99% of the time you're going to be doing you're planning on changing from Windows to iOS because most developers and instructors I see are using iOS. That's one of those things that you guys, a lot of times people are worried about too much is, oh, what tools are they using? What operating systems are they using? And they're so worried that they're using Windows instead of iOS or using iOS instead of Windows. So they never get around to actually learning to code. It honestly doesn't matter. I mean, people at my work I would say the majority of people at my work use Windows, but the majority of the front-end devs, excluding myself, use Mac, so iOS. If I tried C#, no, I did do some C++ back in the day. School is doing very well, by the way. I'm supposed to be taking my first test on Monday. I set up my first semester, if you will. Basically, I'm enrolled in 3 classes, but I'm hoping to get about 9 done. My goal is to have a course a week, a course every 2 weeks, but right now I will have a course. I will finish my first course after a week and continue on. Do I freelance? Sort of. Oftentimes, I'm open to it, but very rarely is there a project I want to work on, and very rarely when people ask me in YouTube chat, if I can freelance for them, are they willing to pay my hourly rate? My hourly rate's $90 an hour. So if that's something that you can pay, and that's something that sounds like, okay, yeah, let's get Dylan on the case. Hit me up, I guess. But yeah, so I when I've done freelance, I've done contract work. It's $90 an hour. And I recently did some, not too long ago for my old work. They had a deadline. They were trying to impress a client, and they needed me to do something with one of the systems that I worked in when I was employed for them. So I'm good. I'm excellent, man. This has been a strange week at work. So it's been great. I've been loving my job, but this last week or two has been strange. I think it's because I'm back at school. What's the answer to the question in the title? Cryptocurrencies. That's the answer. That's the industry that I would focus on, and the things I would study, such as Solidity, excuse me. My college has C++ this semester, but I want to start web dev. You do C++ and web dev. .net. So, it's mainly the back end, but yeah. Free code camp for projects, for practice projects, but when you're actually going and building your own, there's not going to be a guide for that. So, my college is going great. I'll be finishing up my first course. I'm taking my first test on Monday, and if I pass, which I expect I will, I've been studying for a week in web dev. God, if I don't pass, I'm just gonna go hand in my 2 weeks. I'll be like, look, man, I failed my web dev course. I can't take your money. I can't take your money. I failed the introduction to web dev course. Here's a refund in my 2 weeks. But yeah, so I'll pass it. It is something that I've been studying just to make sure, because a lot of times it's not that I'm worried that, oh man, this test is going to be so hard. It's just that so I went through the reading, and I've done some cards, which are like study aids, and I'm doing the quizzes, and a lot of it is just like poorly worded questions that you're like, well, it could be 3 of these 4 answers. It's like, well, which one is the best one? Well, that's kind of a matter of opinion. In my opinion, it's this. Or just like, what of these elements, like which one of these are likely not to render? And it's like tables, because tables apparently in HTML4 was an issue. It's like, I've never even wrote anything in fucking HTML4. So it's just a little bit of like outdated knowledge that if you weren't in the industry, you wouldn't know. How do you manage time management? I don't watch TV, and I'm always progressing. That is really it. You don't really need to manage your time so much if you are constantly just working on things. Like, it's just like, okay, well, to put a caveat, when I do feel like I'm getting sick of something, like let's say I've been solving algorithms for like 6 weeks, I'll switch to projects. Or I get stuck on a project, I'll halt the project, I'll go back to algorithms or something else. I'm always trying to keep it fun. I went to a meetup on Thursday. It always progressing is kind of the goal. How do you transfer from tutorial coding to your own coding without needing to watch tutorials? You just have to start breaking down the projects piece by piece and draw out some wireframes. Try to understand what it is that you're building and what are all the pieces that need to connect, right? Think of it as a Lego project, right? Usually when you start Legos, you start at the foundation, or you start building out little pieces piece by piece until they're done. Then you slowly start building out those sections and connecting them. Have you tried Angular? Yes, I currently work in Angular every single day. And that is what I do. Am I intentionally ignoring your questions? I've really answered literally every question on here. Yeah, and also, dude, this is not Stack Overflow. Your for loop is breaking, from what I can tell, because you don't have any brackets and you just have a semicolon after your for loop, which makes no sense. Which languages have worth it in 2018? I mean, a lot. Solidity, which is the cryptocurrency contracting company for Ethereum. There's JavaScript / TypeScript. Those are some. I would have to do more research, so I haven't followed up. But honestly, C++, C#. I already look. First off, Zafar, I've already answered your question. C++ is used in web dev with .NET. So, how to get project for skill enhancements? Is there any website that you can tell? Just start building things. Yeah, just decide on something, start building. I mean, honestly, so the first project I ever did, web developer, which, by the way, I'm surprised you were able to get that that name. The first project I was ever able to do was the Weather API project on FreeCodeCamp, and there's about 10 front end projects on there, which is why you do those projects to kind of prep you for being able to go and build your own. And so that's really what you have to do, is just kind of slowly ease yourself in. And, that first project that you're kind of doing, the Weather API portfolio, it's going to be a little bit intimidating. You're going to have that blank text editor, and you're going to like shit your pants, be like, oh my God, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know where to get started. That's okay. Don't panic, right? Just take a deep breath and start breaking down everything piece by piece. And that's where I would start. And then when you get done with those first 10 projects, you should be able to piece things together on your own a little bit easier. And then that's when you can build out real projects, real portfolio projects. What are the opportunities in crypto in the future? A ton. One, you could start writing contracts. Two, you could do the front end, the back end, project management. These are companies that are exploding. And from a technical standpoint, you can take front end. Usually you'll pick up again Solidity or another. That's the main one from what I've known. And by the way, I'm not super educated in this. I just went to a meetup and then did a little bit of research on some blogs and stuff like that. But there's tons of jobs. These companies are exploding recently, and you're talking about like languages that have been around for like years, singular years, and not a lot of people have learned it. It's an exploding space, and so if you have a little bit of front end experience, they'll take you. You have a little bit of back experience, they'll take you. You just have to do one, maybe two little tiny projects to show that you know what you're doing. What gets you triggered? Entitled subscribers. I'm not familiar with the QT framework, so yeah, entitled subscribers get me triggered because it's like, here you are spending your time, your energy, your money most of the time working on something that you're essentially giving away for free with the hopes that people are going to watch it and maybe you'll promote yourself and get a little ad revenue. But yeah, so the people who think they're entitled to your time and energy, those are the people that trigger me. Do you recommend a level of design skill when seeking a job in front-end development? I would say it would help. It definitely would help. I could tell you that there's a lot of front-end developers, myself included, who are bad at design. Just very, very bad. It is definitely a different skill set. Now, if you have design and you have a great UI, UX, it's definitely going to set you apart from other candidates. It also depends on what type of company you're going to work for, right? So if you're going to... if you're going to work for a web design company, it definitely is going to help. If you're going to work for maybe a corporate company like I do, where you're building a lot of CRUD apps and in-house tools, design usually goes by the wayside most of the time. Do you have some tips to how I can grow my YouTube channel? Currently I have 7,500 subscribers. I do a little C#. Well, I'd have to check out your channel. We could do one of the mentoring sessions I said, and we could sort of dive into what I think you could improve upon. But I don't know. It's for me, it's always just been consistency, just continually grinding it out. And mind you, I mean, I don't know how you might be doing better than I am in reality, because I've been working on my channel for 2 years and 7 months. We've been grinding it out for quite a bit, and I'm growing by about 2,000 subscribers right now. For all I know, you started a channel like 3 weeks ago and are at 7,500 subs, killing it. But it really just depends, man. It's hard to grow a coding channel in general because it is such a niche. Now there are people who are exploding for various reasons that I don't understand, but for me, it's always just been a consistency thing. It's been something that has always been fun. I haven't tried to really think too much about how to grow the channel. You know, I think about it because I'm passionate about it, but I haven't let it be something that discourages me. It did what it was supposed to do, which was help me get a job, and now everything else has been gravy. So when you talk about the free code camp projects, are you talking about the tutorial part? They have front end projects, they have intermediate, they have basic front end projects, and they also have intermediate front end projects. Well, they give you about 10 different projects that you can build out in the front end section of the current curriculum. I wonder if the new stuff went up. So they were supposed to update their content pretty soon. I don't know that it went out though. Oh, look at that. Something went out. All their CSS is down. Let's go ahead and clear the cache real quick down here. But yeah, so they have projects on there. Random quote machine, weather app, stuff like that. Nope, they haven't updated the content yet. God, I want to do it so bad. And my experience with PHP, my last role I did PHP and Cake PHP, yes. Advice for getting an internship. Is it too late to find one for this summer? Well, LinkedIn, GitHub, portfolio projects, good resume, and then start just filling out apps like you couldn't believe. Probably around 500 before you'll get one. That's fill out 500 apps. Fill out apps every day and see what you can do. After JavaScript, what should I learn? Depends what you want. I would say definitely if you're looking for front end, you need to pick up React or you need to pick up Angular. Freelancing jobs, I don't know. You can, yeah, feel free to ask as many questions as you want. And about my early childhood life, I mean, what do you want to know, man? As your typical dorky guy that watched anime, watched cartoons, played video games, and that's basically it. I wasn't like programming, if that's what you're asking. Say something about game development JavaScript. What do you want to know? Do you still hold position in crypto? Yes. I've taken out all my money, all my initial investment, and I am letting the remainder of my profits sit as what I currently am doing. I'm a junior Rails dev and kind of intermediate in Ruby, and I know JavaScript is similar, so is that enough to be employable? Well, when you say you're a junior Rails developer, are you aspiring to be a junior Rails developer, or are you a junior Rails developer? How much time should a beginner code for export? What do you mean export? What altcoins do you own, if any? I own IOTA, I own Salt, I own Litecoin, and I own Ethereum. Bitcoin Cash, and then Bitcoin. That's what I own. And then 2 random ones I just picked up because they dropped 50% in one day. I just had to cash out a little bit of money. Your boy's trying to buy a house in 2 months. So... Hey, I thought it was pretty good with the free CodeCamp projects. Then I realized that my pins look horrendous when viewed on mobile. Where did I learn how to scale and adapt? Your tutorials don't cover that. Yeah, I probably should have done it in that. I mainly enjoy the JavaScript aspect of it, so sometimes I kind of get a little janky with that. Well, if you're using Bootstrap, they have a column grid system that's pretty straightforward. If you think you've mastered Rails, you should be applying for roles. I don't know what you're asking for. No one's going to come up, knock on your door, like, sir, you are ready. You're ready to join the workforce. Please come. We need you. You just got to start doing it. Yeah, man. I mean, it doesn't hurt to spend some time applying for jobs every week as part of your learning process. For one, you'll see what the market wants. 2, you'll get feedback on your resume from recruiters and everything else, and you'll kind of tailor your learning to what the job market demands. Thanks for the time. What I don't get is that you have 32,000 subscribers, only 29 people are watching. Why on earth? I don't know. This is the way it goes, man. I don't know what I could tell you that Engineered Truth, he has like almost 200,000 subscribers, and on a good live stream for him, he has 200 people. So, I mean, YouTube isn't necessarily a live stream platform, but it seems to be that about 1/10 of 1% of your audience watches when you live stream on YouTube, right? So a lot of times people are busy. People, are doing other things. So I don't really think about it too much. When you're on YouTube and you're a smaller channel, if you focus too much on numbers, it's really easy to get discouraged. It is, right? So I remember when I was starting and it would just say no views. Like you'd upload a video and it would say no views because you have like 4 people who are subscribed, right? Just 0 views. Not 0 views, no views is what it says. And so like you're seeing single digit subscriber growth, and then some days it's just flat because you didn't gain any subscribers, or you actually went in the negative because you had people unsubscribe and you didn't have enough to cover it. So when it comes to YouTube, man, you gotta keep it fresh, you gotta keep it fun, and not really worry about too much. Do you have some tips to get the coding drive back? Well, I would first reevaluate what your time management is. I would say if your coding drive is being decreased because you're spending time playing Call of Duty or you're watching a fuck ton of TV, I would say handle that before anything else. In terms of getting your coding drive back, just try to remember what it is that you wanted. I find that be a very immature question a lot of times. That's something that somebody who's like 16 to like a very impressionable 29-year-old would say. It's a very child thing to say. And I'm not saying this to pick on Ichiro, but it's something that I don't necessarily have a lot of understanding or sympathy for. It's like, hey, I want to be a developer, but I have a really hard time not watching TV, not playing games, and instead I just like to go out, have a beer, smoke a joint with the buddies. And by the way, I don't have a problem with any of that. But what I'm saying is, if your goal is to actually learn to code because you want to better your financial situation, you want to get your career started, then apparently those other things are more important. And that's 95% of the time what it is. And so I mean, honestly, you just have to make a mental note of like, hey, this is important to me. So you know what? I'm not going to hang around with those people who are going to go out on the weekends, because I'm guessing most of your friends aren't developers. And if you can find people to surround yourself who are developers, do that. So that's really my comment on that. Am I looking to stay in Florida in the short term? Yeah. Do you have a recommendation for a text editor? Yes, I personally love Visual Studio Code. They have been doing an excellent job updating it. All their updates actually read the release notes. Just Visual Studio Code's fine for everybody. Is good dressing necessary for a job interview? Yes. You should definitely dress business professional or business casual. Could you explain the use of Angular and React in a practical sense? Find myself starting to learn them, but don't really understand the primary purpose. Well, the purpose of any framework essentially is to make it an easier task to use the language. And in JavaScript's a unique case because you have kind of 3 things that you're interacting with in front-end web development. You're interacting with HTML, you're interacting with CSS, and you're interacting with the actual JavaScript, which, if you really want to say, you're interacting with the database. So you're kind of touching 4 things. And so Angular and React allows us a better way of writing dynamic code for static code, and also allows us to write it in a component structure that allows it to easily be reused, reproduced, and allows manipulating those 4 sort of things in a much easier fashion. That's really what the point is. How should we cope with people who brag about their coding? Well, I've talked about a previous situation where I went to a coding meetup, and there's like a super senior dev there who it's just the first time I met a subscriber, and they're like, yeah, I'm talking to him, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, thanks for watching the videos. I'm glad they helped, blah blah blah. And then the guy said something along the lines of, I didn't know Domino's delivery driver could be have coding videos or something like that. And so for me, I usually just smile and nod, and I don't worry about it too much. What I would say to you is just use it as motivation. That's how I do it. And just be very happy when you surpass those people, because they're usually very unhappy people. Which is why it's so important to have a very good workplace as well. Nice to see you too, Jonathan Diego de Fierretes Quintero. Nailed it, baby. Jonathan. Well, let me try this. I'm going to try this as Jonathan Diego de Fierretes Quintero. There we go. Have a good one, Michael. Can you give any advice how to keep calm for a job interview? How to be less nervous / anxious? Doing a lot of them helps. Practicing whiteboard interviews. I actually find that it's a very good practice to tell them that you're extremely nervous and anxious, and that makes everybody in the room relax. And just say it in a funny way. How much time should a beginner's code in a day? 3 to 4 hours every day until you get a job. The course you're doing for a degree, can it be done with the same university if you live in the UK? I don't know. You could definitely reach out to the Western Governors University admissions, and they would tell you. Is web development for me? I'm not good with design. I'm not good with design either, and I'm being paid very well to be a web developer. Well, my chances of getting a job as a front-end developer would be higher after 3 months of an internship. Is it a paid internship? Is it an unpaid internship? It depends. It depends on the quality of the internship. You have changed a lot, man. Can't believe that you have 32K. You think I've changed? I'm coming up. I'm stepping on the little man. So Ichiro, I would say that if you really have lost the motivation, try and focus about what it is that you don't want to become. So there's 2 types of motivations for me, right? One is there's positive motivation, and then there's negative motivation. And in my case, I oftentimes find that focusing on what I don't want to become is much more motivating than what I want to become. And a good example of that is I see like an 80-year-old cashier or bagger, and I assume that this person has no savings. I assume that this person made bad financial decisions, and I, in return, am making good financial decisions. It's really easy to see somebody who's well off, and you're like, yeah, man, I want that. That's good. I want to know how. But then you start, that is motivating without a doubt. But for me, it's much more motivating knowing that, like, I don't want to be working when I'm 80 at a fucking grocery store. I don't want to be, and that's not to talk shit or anything like that. It's just what I want, right? And so I would say try and find what your motivation is. Why is it that you want to learn to code? Is it because you want a good job and career? That's great. Now go look at people who have bad jobs and bad careers, and maybe that motivates you. And you're like, shit, I got to study. I got to do this. Honestly, it's an internal struggle, and it's hard. It's about setting goals, plans, and executing those, and working towards those every day. How do you think of an idea for making our first project? Just find something that you want to do long term that you think would be fun. That's really it. Your first project probably not going to succeed. Second project probably not going to succeed, but you're going to learn a lot in the process. After finishing the free CodeCamp front-end cert, am I ready theoretically? Should I jump into Angular? There's not really any platform that I would say that you could learn Angular. I have an Angular course that's an introduction to it. They get you going, a little project, portfolio project. But I mean, I do suggest that you pick up Git. I do suggest that you pick up Angular or React and go from there. I saw a video where React is for startups and Angular is for big corporations. Will I have a hard time if I learn React this year? No. A lot of times companies just want to know that you've worked with a a MVC templating or framework. I mean, will you have an easier time getting a React job if you have React experience? Yes. Will you have an easier time getting an Angular job if you have Angular experience? Yes. But it's not the end all be all. Do you have advice for getting information about IT coding and similar tech stuff? I happen to have a great piece of advice. I have a Facebook group, a little under 5,000 members, called Code Tech and Caffeine, that I run along with Program with Eric. And in there, we talk about code, tech, and we don't really talk about caffeine, but you guys get the idea. But there should be a link in the description. If you search on Facebook, Code Tech Caffeine, I think it's a great resource. You have people on there who are sharing projects. You have people on there sharing news. Just I'm sharing my videos on there and stuff like that. Unpaid internship. You should not take a fucking unpaid internship. I've done a whole video about this. It's the worst piece of advice anybody could ever tell you is take an unpaid internship. Do full stack devs focus more on back end or front end, or equal effort in both? It really depends on what it is that the company wants a full stack dev to do. At my last job, I was a full stack developer. I did equally both. I would say that the front end oftentimes took more time, at least for me, because the back end, you're really just doing the same old. The back end there's less moving parts, in my opinion. What is that Facebook group? Code Tech and Caffeine. Let me go ahead and I'll throw it up in here in just a second. Let me go get that link. So if you want to join the group, Smod Cartoon. So the Facebook group, I just threw it up in the chat. It's called Code Tech and Caffeine. If for some reason you can't click it, I've only said it 7 times. Code Tech and Caffeine, 8. Would you recommend someone who's finishing high school at the moment, a university, to do software to complete online? University like yourself, or stick to a regular university which takes 3 years? That's a very hard question to ask, because I could tell you that at 18 I took some online courses and I failed them all. Not because they were hard or anything like that. I just didn't have the discipline to sit down and do all of that. So I mean, if you have the discipline to go and do that, to go to WGU and sit down, and I have it now, but I didn't when I was graduating high school anywhere near it, then yes, I think it would be an excellent opportunity, and then you just continue on your own. I think honestly you should just study yourself and get an internship and go, and then not have to take out debt in the meantime. That's my personal opinion. If I was to go straight from high school and I wanted to break into the industry as fast as possible, I would do a coding boot camp, a good one, and then I would just start trying to get jobs. That's what I would do. There's not a best website. There's tons of different websites to learn. There's Free Code Camp, there's Codecademy, there's Udemy, there's Pluralsight, there's Udacity, there's YouTube. Really just don't try and look for one resource to learn. How much room for learning do companies leave for potential employees that demonstrate communication and teamwork skills more so than programming? That's a very interesting question, and it's a very company by company basis. I work at a very good company in that aspect, that they have a very extensive interview process to get candidates that have communication and teamwork skills specifically, but some companies aren't. I'd rather have you program more. So it's a company by company thing. Honestly, it's gonna be up to you to find a good company. A lot of companies are really bad. So, question for you about my son: should he attend Rensselaer for 13K or Rutgers for 11K? I couldn't tell you, man. I'm not too familiar with that, with either of those. Where do I start? You're probably asked this 100 times. You start, if it's front end, you want to start with HTML, CSS, move JavaScript, spend very little time on jQuery, if any at all. You definitely want to pick up Git. You want to pick up a front end framework such as React or Angular. I got that down now. Oh, kitty. I had my first interviews for a software development position. They were asking themselves, do you know what Docker is and what is the difference between abstract class and interface? And they asked to add a new method to already created class on the paper and then select data from the database. Sounds like a pretty intense object-oriented question. What is your view on companies? What is your view on companies that have a ton of unpaid interns? I think it's a bad thing for you to do it as an individual, and I think it's fucked up for a company to do it. For one thing, and I did a whole video about should you take an unpaid internship, and I showed you some stats from colleges that track internship stats, and what it has shown is that you're less likely to get a job from an unpaid internship than you are from a paid internship, and you're also when you do get an offer, it's going to be about 33% less than what a paid internship in the same role would have gotten. So it's really not worth your time. Is it enough nowadays to know basic things to get a job? I mean, what do you define basic things? When do you plan to release another Not2 video? So here's the thing, guys. My computer, although I'm using it to stream, it's been breaking. I ordered a new one, and I am waiting for it to arrive. So once I have a great video with the character. So the Rogue videos, those are gonna be Dolan the Wix developer videos. It's gonna be it. It's gonna be my alter ego. You look like a gamer too. I mean, I used to game a lot, not so much anymore. Diabetic manatee, man. The diabetes didn't get you. I haven't seen you in a while. I thought the diabetes caught you. How important do you believe a digital footprint? You're talking about branding. I think it's super important. Portfolio is great. But if you're just talking about digital footprint, you definitely have to have a portfolio. You definitely have to have a GitHub. You definitely have to have a LinkedIn at the very least. And then if you're trying to go the extra mile with some branding, social media is an awesome way to help you out. Yeah, that's why I mean, there's a couple of YouTubers out there that will tell you to take an unpaid internship. And it's just awful advice. Would it be too personal to ask what college you got your CS degree from? I don't have a CS degree. I was a CS student, and then I dropped out of school about 2 years ago. And I started working as a developer. I currently, on the 1st, restarted a online program through Western Governors University in software development. It's a Bachelor of Science degree. So, that's it. Your boy is getting his edumacation. I stink. energy drinks or coffee. I've always enjoyed energy drinks, although I am drinking one right now. On the weekends, I allow myself a single energy drink on Saturday, single energy drink on Sunday, and then I at work I don't have any for the week. All right, guys. Last few minutes to for questions and everything. Can I check your LinkedIn to see if it's a good start, as I really have much experience at all? Not right now, man. If you want me to go over your LinkedIn and stuff like that, you can set up a mentoring thing or try and catch me at another time, another YouTube, another live stream, rather. But yeah, I'll take questions for about 5 more minutes, then we're going to wrap it up and call it a day. Any tips for getting hired at a company that focuses on their own web application when most of your experience is website development and design? I mean, web dev is... I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I mean, are you talking about like diving into legacy code? What is the next video about? I did it. What was it? I have a video up. It's like 16 or 17 minutes. I can tell you, it's a good one. They're all good ones. At least that's what I think. We'll give you that. We'll give you that hot fire. Let me see. How was my first week at WG? It wasn't too bad, man. I've been studying in the morning. Let's see here. It is about... Can you guys hear this? Let me see here. $19 minutes. Yeah, I remember. What do you actually do? You know, we get that you write code, you're a front-end developer. That's what it's about. So I did a video by popular demand about what I do on a day-to-day basis at my current job. So I break down what I'm actually doing as a front-end developer. So I think it'll be a good topic for you guys. So anyhow, guys, I appreciate y'all. It has been a pleasure. I do these every Saturday. If you want to support me, you can join the Facebook group. It's completely free, Code Tech and Caffeine. You can buy my course on Udemy. There's a link in the description to give you a basic introduction project. You can support me on Patreon. And of course, as always, you can like, subscribe, share the videos. These are my weekly live streams. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. We've been growing great, and it's been nice. So thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.